I'm super excited about this opportunity to moderate this panel. Amazing people are going to be speaking today. They're going to be showing a lot of really cool strategies and ideas surrounding the topic, which the topic is about peer support, resiliency, and mental health. A quick little background on me. I'm a lieutenant with the Denver Police Department. I've been with the PD for 28 years. I'm currently working to become a licensed clinical counselor, which is what I'm going to do in the next stage of my life. I'm going to retire from the PD in January and go into working with emergency responders. That's really what I want to do as far as providing therapy. I've been speaking on peer support, suicide prevention, and those strategies for law enforcement for probably the last 15 years. I've been a member of my own peer support team for over 20 years. So this is a topic that's near and dear to me, and I think it's an incredibly important strategy for an organization to put into place. With all that said, I'll stop talking, and I'm going to introduce our first speaker, which is Lieutenant Janna Salisbury with the NYPD. She is in charge, the commanding officer of the Employee Assistance Unit for the NYPD. And Janna, I'll just give it to you if you want to, if you have a screen to share or whatever.
Great, thank you. Yeah, let me see if I can get this right. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you, John. Just to introduce myself again, I'm Lieutenant Janna Salisbury. I'm the commanding officer of the NYPD's peer support program called the Employee Assistance Unit. I'm going to speak to you a little bit today about the NYPD's wellness resources and how we as a department had to shift the way we were looking at interacting with the 55,000 members of the NYPD during COVID-19. Of course, our traditional model as a employee assistance unit and peer support is that one-on-one personal connection. And that kind of disappeared when COVID-19 hit. So we realized as a department and as a unit that we needed to be a little bit more nimble in order to continue our mission of improving resiliency and overall wellness within the NYPD. So I'm going to speak to you a little bit about, first I'm going to introduce the Employee Assistance Unit, and then I'm going to discuss the ways that the NYPD, the Health and Wellness Section, and the Employee Assistance Unit use remote resources to engage its members and reinforce wellness, all of our wellness initiatives during COVID-19. So the Employee Assistance Unit falls under our general umbrella of the Health and Wellness Section that was established in 2019. And the Health and Wellness Section really strives to use a holistic and comprehensive model. So of course, we're looking at mental health, we're looking at physical health, emotional, spiritual, and of course, we're going to pay attention to post-career too, because we realize that the effects of a law enforcement career go on long past your retirement date. The EAU is one very important piece of this model, but the EAU itself also looks to encompass these 5 topics in our outreach and wellness initiatives as well. So the NYPD's Employee Assistance Unit was first established back in 1973. It's been around for quite a long time, and it's the NYPD's primary resource for 24-hour peer support, our critical incident response, and suicide awareness and prevention education for all of our both uniformed and civilian members, or sworn and not sworn officers of the police department. So the EAU's goal is not to solve the personal or professional stressors of our employees. We really look to create a bridge to wellness resources. We want to empower our employees to recognize and address stressors before they become overwhelming and affect their personal and professional lives. As part of the Health and Wellness Section's multidisciplinary approach to wellness, we're really here to increase officer resiliency. But what's really unique about the NYPD's EAU is its staff. We're not a traditional EAP program as, you know, like the big city may have, the city itself may have, or a department may have an EAP that encompasses all aspects of employee assistance. We are just peer support. So our counselors are diverse, pulled from many ranks and civilian titles of the department, because of course that's very important to, we want our staff to represent, to look exactly like what the NYPD employees look like. So we're, we call them peer counselors. The EAU peer counselors are permanently and exclusively assigned to just peer support responsibilities, provide guidance, insight, a kind and listening ear, and in the most extreme of situations, the EAU peer counselors provide suicide intervention for, like I said, for all 55,000 members of the NYPD. We do this by working daily to reduce stigmas that officers often see as a barrier to mental health resources. We generally, pre-COVID, post-COVID, during COVID, as much as possible, we do this by speaking in command, speaking in person, having that one-to-one personal interaction with our employees. We talk about mental health, we talk about department initiatives and resources, and we try to open those doors to communication that breaks down barriers that could be helpful later. All of the conversations with EAU peer counselors are confidential, with an obvious exception. If an officer states that he is going to hurt himself or someone else, of course, we're going to take any means and measures necessary to protect a life. And under the direction of our clinical supervisor, Dr. Adria Adams, we assist members of this department through some of the most personal and professional trying times of their life. So when COVID struck, we realized that we were no longer really able to do that outreach in the traditional way. So although the department has had an internet online capability for quite a while, that platform became much more important as a way to reinforce the overall wellness message while a member was at work. So at their desks, they can interact with our health and wellness section via our online presence there under the directives and manuals. You'll see there's circled a link that leads right to the health and wellness section's portal. This puts resources literally at their fingertips while they're working and mirrors our mobile application that I'll discuss in a minute. We also have some online mandatory training models. It's one of the ways that we ensured engagement during COVID-19. When we couldn't have that physical one-to-one interaction, we ensured that every member of the police department was required to take these 12 psychoeducational training models. Currently, over 40,000 members of the department have taken all 12 videos in the series, and we've also offered additional optional training models, as well as a whole financial literacy program, and there's 8 videos there. We tackled some complicated issues for first responders, stigma associated with seeking mental health services, cumulative trauma, of course, suicide. All of these videos highlight key department resources such as the health and wellness section, the counseling services unit, psychological evaluation section.
The job is that,
oh, sorry. The psychological evaluation section, and some of our, especially the EAU and the LOR program. I do have a short video clip that gives an example of this. This one specifically addresses the stigma associated with seeking mental health resources. You know, like when you talk to the guys out in the field, of course, they say the job is not your friend. You can't trust the job to take care of you. So that's one of the things we really look to, one myth that we really look to dispel while we were doing these psychoeducational videos.
the job is not your friend. They're not here to help you. The less they know about your problems, the better off you are.
You know, whatever you believe about the attitudes of your boss in your workplace, the best thing you can do to take care of yourself and make sure you protect your job and the quality of your work is to take care of your mental health.
The job is your friend. You know, as a veteran, I completely understand what it's like to have pressures of the world on you sometimes. And in dealing with that, we feel like we're not supposed to have problems in the first place.
The New York City Police Department has taken a different stance on being able to help police officers and civilians in need. I can speak personally that if I didn't reach out for help at one point in my career, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to the rest of you.
So that's just one example of those psychoeducational training modules. We've really got some great feedback. There was one specifically where we had an officer come forward who had taken advantage of the Employee Assistance Unit's line organization referral program, where he was actively suicidal, and another member of the department called on his behalf, and an intervention was made with an EAU counselor who walked him through the process. And we're happy to say that he's back to full duty. And that's just one example of some of the really great work the Employee Assistance Unit does. But COVID really showed us that, you know, those personal interactions that we were making out in the field were working, and we really needed to continue that while we didn't have that kind of modality. Like I indicated, our health and wellness page is mirrored on our smartphone apps. So 35 members of our department carry a NYPD issued smartphone in their pocket every day. So of course we have our health and wellness section app on there. It outlines, if you tap on the health and wellness section icon, it gives the mission and function of the health and wellness section as well as the Employee Assistance Unit, identifies key members of our precinct level peer support program, so that if an officer is not maybe comfortable approaching the peer in their command at their hand, they have a one-touch option to contact any of the over 300 trained peers within the NYPD. It also gives a one-touch communication to our EAU peer counselors and the clergy from our chaplains unit. And it has one-touch emergency crisis options, the Employee Assistance Unit phone number, which is manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and also other emergency crisis options. It has all of our psychoeducational videos, as well as other digital references, posters, pamphlets, fact sheets, self-assessment inventories. It gives instructions on how to talk to somebody who may be in crisis, because we really push you're not only responsible for yourself, you're responsible for the person next to you. So we want you to know how to talk to somebody should that come up. Plenty of self-care techniques, and all of the EAU and health and wellness seminars, training, any of our outreach opportunities. And then we also took the time to really focus on our NYPD Employee Assistance Unit Twitter page that talks about all the good work that the Employee Assistance Unit is doing out there in the field, and the health and wellness Instagram account that shows all of our initiatives, all of the yoga, the mindfulness, the opportunities that we're taking to hit all 5 of those pillars of the overall wellness. We also really focused on internet webinars. We knew that, now that we weren't able to talk to people in person, we needed a way to continue providing our resources. So we started doing health and wellness webinars, financial health, talking about retirement planning and overall debt. That's one of the biggest stressors our officers feel every day, is they take this, the financial stress they're feeling at home, and they bring it with them into work. We also talk about social and emotional aspects. We had a virtual book club. Dr. Adams has a virtual book club where we go over psychoeducational books. Our virtual social hour, a lot of people were missing that engagement that they had, especially our civilian employees who are working from home. They missed the engagement they had coming into work every day. So we offered a virtual social hour where people could just log on and talk and really just, get that social interaction back. We have a mind and body series with mindfulness and yoga. We have 2 trained certified yoga instructors on staff with the health and wellness section, our captain and one of the police officers. And, really taking time out of each day to concentrate on yourself. Physical fitness, we have certified nutritionists, and we have officers who are do physical fitness instruction, so that anybody who's looking to get in shape, if that's one of the stressors in her life, that's available as well. And of course, our mental health and emotional, Dr. Adams would have some series talking about grief and coping, and of course, addressing stigma within the police department. And then we were really able to use Zoom as a platform to do those one-on-one interviews, those one-on-one interactions with officers when we weren't able to meet them in the field, or, they didn't want just a phone call or a text. They wanted to see the peer counselor's face. So we were really exploring.
I just want to be mindful of the time. So
sure.
If you can synopsize a little bit of what you talked
sure.
about.
Just one more thing. We had the Spring 3100, which is a magazine that goes out to all of our uniformed civilian and retired officers, but it really gave us a way to contact the employees' families, because I think that's one place where we really miss the boat sometimes. So this was a magazine, a publication that we sent, and it was the first time that it was exclusively dedicated to the health and wellness of the NYPD. So, you know, with officers' families, they're usually the first ones who notice the signs and symptoms of something that may be a little off with somebody. So we wanted to give them the resources to really be able to contact the Employee Assistance Unit or any of the others, any of the other resources within the NYPD. So I think kind of the takeaways is that we really realized that we had to be nimble, that we had to provide, you know, a menu of options of ways for our Employee Assistance Unit and, you know, the resources that we had worked so hard to establish to be able to still have those connections.
Well, thank you so much, Janna. There was a lot of information for you to try to fit in. And I know, no, I
talked really fast.
There's a ton of important work in what you shared, and it's really valuable. There are a couple of Q&As, people asking about the number of peer support people you have and things like that for your agency. So you might want to, if you can reply to that, that'd be cool.
Absolutely, I'll take a look.
So next up, we've got Sergeant Brent McIntyre from up in Canada, one of our friends up there and from Ottawa. He's the peer support coordinator, and he's going to present for us on peer support from reactive to proactive approaches. And Brett and I did talk yesterday a little bit about us watching our language as cops. We tend to talk like cops, so I'll be keeping an eye on you, Brent.
Okay, that's good. Thank you very much. It's really great to see everybody here. Let me just see if I can get my share screen going here.
Hey, Brent, it's Jeff. Sorry, I had to jump in while you bring your screen up. I didn't know if we're going to take a poll or not, but you're definitely in first place for best dressed. Love the
All
show.
right. That's good. Yeah, well, my boss said I better wear my best Hawaiian shirt, so I figured I'd wear my Elvis special there. So let's see. Have you seen my screen? Can everybody see it? We are good. All right, solid. Great. Thanks very much, everybody. I have about 50 minutes worth of speaking notes, and I have 11 minutes and 45 seconds to start to do it. So I'm going to try to speak quickly and fast and start so I get apart sort of my message here. What we need to start doing is start rethinking, start redeveloping the way we think of the reactive nature of peer-to-peer. That's how it's traditionally been thought of up here in Canada. And what I'm looking for is something to be more nimble, more responsive, more targeted towards the women and men of the police service. And particularly since we are working so hard in very difficult, trying times right now with COVID and the social changes that we're seeing throughout North America and around the world. So traditional models of policing and peer-to-peer, really a lot of services have started to believe that you know, the psychological well-being is paramount, and we need to make sure that they start believing that it's on the same par as our physical personal protective equipment. It's got to be started to think about the same sort of nature of the peer support programs and other mental health programs is being on par with the reflective vests and our guns and our vehicles that we use, right? So what we're seeing traditionally is that peer-to-peer has been residing within some form of HR, some sort of, it's in the background, and we point to it as, you know, if you're going through a personal or professional crisis, here it is. I want you to, here's a program that might help you out. It's in the same vein. It's been percolating in the back, much like our employee assistance programs, right? Oh, here's a 1-800 number. Here's a pamphlet if you're really suffering with a personal, professional problem. And you hand it to the employees that walk out the door. Well, what if, I'm proposing, what if we start talking about, can we start making the phone call on their behalf instead of handing them that card? What would that look like if we handed the phone over to the member for the employee assistance program instead of just letting them sit back and make the phone call? We all know it's much harder to make a call than it is to receive a call. So the core principles of peer-to-peer has been voluntary and confidential. It's driven by the member, focused, and it's staffed by members. I'm not looking at changing that in any way, shape, or form. But what I am looking at is how can we make it more proactive? All this developed right from the Ombudsman report in Canada, the Marin report in 2011-2012 entitled Line of Duty. And it was a look at the Ontario Provincial Police and what their resources were doing or not doing for their members in terms of wellness. While it might have been an indictment of the OPP, it could have applied to any police service across Ontario, I would say across Canada at that time. all of our strategies really started coming from that report. So I'd invite members to look at that report if they're looking for where did this sort of percolate in Canada from. I would point to that report as our first one. Okay, so what is it that we really want to do? We want to create programming that's impactful. We want to create program that's relevant to members' growth. We want to make sure that we are creating programs that members are going to say, this is what actually helped me get back to work. One program that we're looking towards and we're looking at implementing is the Edmonton Police Service Reintegration Model. We all know, and the literature is very clear, that the elimination of mental health is really what's going to allow us as an organization to have that organizational transformative change. This program, which really incorporates peer-to-peer with a team approach with other members of your police service to bring people that have been through a critical incident or that are been away from work for a long period of time. How do we bring them back into the fold? How do we make sure they feel supportive and they're given they feel confidence in returning to work? I would suggest to you that creating a peer-to-peer team, which might be working with a use of force instructor, which is working with your return to work specialist in HR that's overseen by potentially a psychologist associated with your service, that is how we're going to start eliminating the stigma in this organization. It's about creating vertical as well as horizontal trust in the organization. You trust the person next to you, you got to trust that the management and the organization wants to create programs that are most beneficial for you. The communication has to be clear and meaningful. You have to get people with that lived experience to start participating in these programs. Reintegration is one of those programs that we're going to be able to point to and say, we didn't just hand a person their gun back after they experienced a critical incident and expect them to put 42 bullets on a target, on a silhouette 40 feet away. We actually gave them the tools to say, I can get on there and I am going to put those bullets in that target. That's the difference here. Organizations, I believe, has got to start committing significant resources into their wellness sections. They cannot allow peer-to-peer to exist as a add-on that isn't supported financially. That's traditionally, in Canada at least, a lot of them have been grassroots movements that they existed outside of the organization and or with some link back to the organization, but it was never funded. We have to start thinking about wellness initiatives, especially here, that we start financing much like we finance the operational experiences, like buying guns and making sure cruisers are working and making sure people have handcuffs in order to do their job. I would suggest to you and most people that employee resource groups are a key to any program success, that you might have a wellness strategy, but I will guarantee you 95% of the people in your organization will never ever read it. You've got to create these groups within your organization that say, this is what I want to see your peer-to-peer teams doing. It has to come from the grassroots. These reintegration programs or lunch and learn topics or whatever it is has to come from the membership to make sure they feel included. And that, I think, is clear. Okay. So what are some implementation strategies, right? You really need an empowered wellness team. You need your mental health ambassadors. Your team has to be representative of your police service, as well as they also have to represent what you want to see in your police service. They have to come from all walks of life. I would suggest to you that you need family members and retirees to be embedded right inside of your peer-to-peer teams. Traditionally, those two members, they create their own teams outside of the organization. But I would say, why aren't we including them inside? We all know that the face mask is going to drop at home before it's ever going to drop at work. You're going to keep up appearances at work to make sure the colleagues think that you are functioning in a normal fashion. When really you might be crumbling inside. Your family's going to see that first. Those are key takeaways that everybody should start thinking about. How do we start including family and retirees into it? Technology, I say, is our next functionality of how to rejuvenate our current programs. It is beyond me, folks, of how we can walk around with more computing power in our pockets than it took to put people into space or land man on a moon, but yet we still are having trouble connecting members with peer-to-peer, right? In Canada, there is very few programs in place that allow somebody to click on an app to actually connect with a peer-to-peer over using technology. Usually, you're going to have to phone them up, find on your internal website. This information exists already. It's right in your pockets. That's what we need to start leveraging. We need to start looking at communities of practice. We need to, bigger services start taking care of smaller services, quite frankly. We need everybody to come up. We need direction at all levels of government. These might start in the grassroots, but really we're going to need in Canada, the Solicitor General to start talking about, okay, what is it that are core requirements of police service in order to function? We need to start thinking in the same light. A portal, I was listening to the NYPD's portal, amazing functionality. That's what I want to see start coming to Canada. That's what I want to see. A lot of smaller services don't have the robust financial support like the NYPD do, that we need to make sure that we have the ability to reach back to family. Frequently, most of our family members don't even know we have a peer-to-peer program. That is a real failing, and everybody that I speak to are having the same problems of connecting with family members. Okay, so peer-to-peer training, it's really got to come from the ground up. I would suggest to you that the first level of critical incident stress management has got to reside within the chain of command. We talk about it as an AIR, or an ad hoc incident review. These are quick snippets of time that the supervisors need to take their members aside to talk to them about after very stressful events. This has to reside on the operational level. This is how you know the horizontal, we're talking about the horizontal leadership, that's how you know your members are being taken care of. I would suggest to you that peer-to-peer can act as a third party to support them, but we have to know, and members have to know, that their bosses care about them and want to make sure that they are that they're okay at the end of the day after some very trying cases. I would start talking to you that we need to start talking about leadership and training at the primary levels. So we talk about primary leadership courses and operational leadership courses. So we're talking about coach officers. We're talking about when your newly minted sergeants passed a process, but they may not really have the tools in the toolbox. So you need to train them at this. If we are not using people with lived experience to help tell the wellness tale, to help start talking about what programs are available, you're missing the boat, people. We want to know, and people that you're speaking to want to know, oh, this program helped me get there, but this is why it was important, and this is my experience with it, and this is why I believe in it so much. I believe internal mental health programs have got to exist. We use the Road to Mental Readiness program, but it could be any one of them. It could be the Working Mind. There's lots of them out there. You need to start building fundamentals of people speaking about their own mental health before we really see this transactional change within an organization. Okay. So we all know that physical and mental health are absolutely connected, and below you can see my Apple and my Brain, and those are programs that we have within our wellness program. What I'd like to start talking about is there are lots of programs that exist at the national level, like Wounded Warriors Canada, which Ottawa Police partnered with, as well as at the local level, like Camp Aftermath and the Ottawa First Responders Foundation. So I can tell you that those two are the ones that are helping our members, and we can direct them because we can't do everything within our program. We're simply not big enough with 2,000 members. We need to start accessing programs outside of that. And we know that you have to find these like-minded people that want to do it. When you start looking at the foundation's core, what I actually sit on the board of directors, but the foundation core is creating an operational stress injury house, which would be available for all first responders. So we're looking at that public-private partnership. So you got to start thinking big picture here, folks, and working towards those steps. And how do we start leveraging money from provincial and state or municipal levels, and combining that with charities? And how do we start implementing actual, real, concrete change? That's where I would like to see us moving with it. All right, finally, folks, advice from the very ground. All right, I would suggest to you that if your service hasn't created an early intervention program, that's somewhere that you need to start moving towards. Early intervention is a program where we collect data. I always talk about police officers are the biggest intelligence gathering tool out there, but we don't collect data on our own people. We really don't, unless we're going to use it for punitive measures. What if we took that paradigm shift, threw it out the window, and said we're going to collect data because we want to know when a platoon central in our busiest detachment is gone to 3 sudden deaths involving infants? What if we want to know when a certain member is used 5 times the amount of sick time than his colleagues have? What can that do? That information needs to start feeding our peer-to-peer programs, right? We need to be able to one, as I said, make sure the chain of command takes care of their people, but also offer them saying peer-to-peer, this is somebody that may be coming up on your radar. Can somebody do an outreach on that person? Can somebody start talking to them about maybe their personal struggles, their lived experience, in hopes of that they start seeing the light? I would start suggesting that you start looking at these early intervention methods, but all that's going to fall underneath your wellness strategy. You need to develop the strategy, SOPs and policies, and you need to make sure you have mechanisms in place that's going to protect the medical information, the confidentiality of your programs. Absolutely, the fundamental aspect of this, you need to make sure that your members feel that it isn't punitive. What we're here is for your own personal development, and make sure that you stay in the 30-year marathon. We want to lose people at the 10-year mark. And if you don't have these policies in place, then I would suggest to you it would be that people won't believe that the program is there for their benefit. They're going to look at it that it's going to be there for potentially a punitive measure. All right, I've left a couple of different added insight areas. You're going to get a copy of this this PowerPoint. It has certain areas. I would suggest everybody looking at Staying Visible and Staying Connected for Life, which was our Chief Coroner's report into deaths of 9 police officers. We sat on the panel as an organization and provided 14 recommendations. These recommendations are really embedded in this program. My last parting words of advice is make sure you take care of the people that are doing all the help for your members. I would tell you that you wouldn't let your battery die on your cell phone, or you'd be really upset if you did that. Make sure that the people that are taking care of your members also have the self-care strategies. That's super important, or you'll burn them out. And if you burn the wellness guy, I always say, the organization is going to say the organization doesn't really want to take care of members. So that's kind of my thoughts around this, folks. And I look forward to discussing sort of other strategies in our Q&A.
Thank you, Brent. I really appreciate everything you said. There's so many points I would love to follow up on from both yours and Janna's presentation. Obviously, we don't have the time. So I'm going to move on to our next speaker, Joe Gazis from Australia. So thank you, Joe, for being here, because I know it's 2 a.m. there, or 2:30 now. So I appreciate you staying up late to talk to us. He is the clinical psychologist and clinical advisor, peer support network for Victoria Police in Australia. So Joe, I'm just going to turn it over to you. I know you're going to talk to us about a lot of things, and some of it may even touch on some of what Brent talked about regarding retiree peer support, which I think is really cool. It's something we started at my agency recently. So
that's terrific. Thank you very much, John. Hello, everybody. It's an honor to be here, even at 2 in the morning, or 2:30 in the morning now. To start with, I'd like to make some general comments and caveats about online resources and peer support programs before we start talking more directly about them. Online resources, I think, should not be seen as a substitute to direct face-to-face group training and group clinical supervision. I think that the live group sessions offer the opportunity for peers to get to know and support each other and share their lived experience. It is this empathic bond that they share with their colleagues that they support that distinguishes their work from other wellbeing services that may be on offer, especially professional services. That's the strength of peer support programs, obviously. I'm talking to the converted here, but you know, it's still good to say it. One of the foundational principles of resilience is social support and social connectedness, which act as protective factors against the stresses of policing. Group training and clinical supervision sessions embed this network of support within the program, where peers get to know each other and are expected to monitor and support each other within a community of practice framework.
Joe, did you have a PowerPoint? I'm sorry, did you have a PowerPoint you wanted to share?
Yes, I do, yes. Thank you. Okay. There we go. I'll just leave that on. I'll finish my caveats and we'll get on with it. Just push that down a bit. Okay. So as has already been said, before I say that, having said this, online resources are an important tool for peers to use to improve and maintain their resilience, as well as tools they can encourage their work colleagues to use. The mobile revolution allows these resources to be available to all when it suits them. They're confidential and can be utilised privately and can bypass the stigma barrier. Internal Victoria Police research has shown that when it comes to seeking help for mental health and wellbeing issues, 61% of employees prefer managing their problems themselves rather than seeking help from health professionals. The peers in our program are expected to be role models with regards to self-care. We have about 900 peers, at 750 of which are active at any time. We encourage our peers to take time off the program when they need it, and to be good role models with respect to knowing when to step back. The credibility of our peer program is judged by our employees on several fronts, including their trustworthiness, their standing in the workplace, confidentiality, credibility, and of course, genuineness. This includes how well the local peers manage their own mental health, and also how the Peer Support Coordination Unit, that is the coordination team, which includes myself as well, supports and manages the peers. Actions speak louder than words, and that's also very true for police officers. It's not what you say, it's what you do that matters. That this program must walk the talk so that people that need to reach out will consider it as a credible and genuine support option. Online resources can help in this endeavour. I'll now present, having said that caveat, I'll now present two of the main online resources developed here at Victoria Police. Both resources are the realisation of projects that were products of the Victoria Police Mental Health Review in 2017 and the Victoria Police Mental Health Strategy and Wellbeing Action Plan. This involved interviews and questionnaires with over 4,000 current members, retired members, and family and friends of members, of the police officers. First of all, I want to talk about the Equipped app. Victoria Police, in collaboration with the Police Association of Victoria, have developed an online wellbeing app for emergency service workers. Let me just, I'll bring this up a bit. Let's have a look at this. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the Equipped app. It's a free wellbeing app. I just want to show you a couple of the apps and what's possible in this space. Free wellbeing app. It's a free wellbeing app to strengthen physical, social, and emotional well-being. It's available on Android and on iOS, so you can download it anytime you want from anywhere in the world. It assists in the development of preventative, healthy, and sustainable lifestyle practices that enhance resilience. We have our phones with us most of the time, we have said. They are a powerful tool, just as Brent was saying. Let's use this technology a bit more effectively. And I think we're starting to slowly do that. It can serve as a good reminder to do things that we might forget in our busy lives. It has bells and whistles, it has notifications, it's all the usual things that annoy you about your phone, which is really good in this case. It can bypass the fear of stigma as it can be used privately, as I said, completely confidential and individually managed. So what the app actually does is it focuses on four main areas. One is rapid response. Then it's got lifestyle tools, then tracking your progress, and then calling for backup or for professional services or other types of support. Rapid response, just to give you an idea of some of the tools, rapid response gives you strategies to manage stress in the moment. So if you're stressed out, if you've been to a severe critical incident or you've had something happen in your personal life and you're sitting there stressing out, you can just click on this app and it helps to reduce stress by targeting your stressful thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations or behaviours. For example, just looking at the graphic there, which is an example of the app, it offers options for control breathing, a reality check for grounding techniques. It helps to release tension using some muscle relaxation processes. It helps you to manage your emotions with some cognitive techniques, and urge surfing, which sounds very interesting, I must admit. And this is it helps to manage urges such as smoking urges, unhealthy eating urges, and other fun things that we need to stamp out in our lives because they're not good for us. Okay, so the next one is lifestyle tools. Lifestyle tools assist in planning and implementing sustainable lifestyle habits. It's a preventative tool that assists in developing all the things in life that aren't work. And in other words, all the fun things that we tend to get rid of and keep all the boring things because we're too busy. And we always think that we've got to get rid of the fun things to cope with work, which of course we have to sometimes, but then it's very important that we reclaim some of those things for ourselves. So as you can see there, it offers things for you to help monitor your sleep time, your sleep habits. It's got an exercise option so that you can set up exercise regimes and monitor those. Rewarding activities to make sure you're getting some fun back in your life, helping you to think more fruitfully, more positively, and of course, staying connected, that social connectedness, which is so important for resilience. I really like the My Shift section, which looks at developing a personalised schedule to best promote your sleep and alertness during shift work. We know the impact of shift work on people, and police officers are no exemption to that, or police employees. So this, I think, is a very effective tool and gets good reviews within the organisation. Then, of course, it helps you to track your progress. So you know whether you're doing anything or not. This function allows tracking of general well-being and goals. It allows you to review current status and addressing any gaps. It provides evidence on how to meet any unachieved goals, and also for you budding scientists or doubting Thomases, it helps to compare stress levels before and after you use the tool to test its effectiveness, which I think is great to be able to see whether you're actually getting anywhere. And of course, just like the other app that I saw, I was quite impressed, Janna, with your app. It also has a function to provide information needed to connect with internal and external support services. So when you're stressed out, the last thing you want to be doing is fumbling through your phone to try and find a number that you can barely focus on. You can barely see 1 inch in front of you, and there it is in big red button. Just press it and off you go. There's also the option to connect with someone from your own social support network, the importance of that connectedness, which of course, that's what peer support's about. It's about that social connectedness. It's about connecting people that are lost or sometimes not feeling like they can talk to anybody, making the peer program a viable option. Okay, the next one I want to have a bit of a chat about is is that still going? Is the overhead still up?
Yes,
good,
the
thank you.
PowerPoint's still showing.
That's good, thank you. Blue Space is the next one I want to talk about. Blue Space was created for current and former employees and their families and friends, helping them to access information about mental health and wellbeing issues and services. Blue Space aims to increase the recognition of early warning signs, provide accurate information about mental health issues, and clarify useful ways for people to engage with and support those who may be experiencing mental illnesses. The content on this website has been created through consultation with over 4,000 people, including current employees, former employees, and family members, which I'm really pleased about. Victoria Police really has come to that acceptance that the importance that our retired members or our veterans and family members are an important part of this jigsaw that makes the whole thing work. And they are all part of the social support networks that exist within the organisation. Here are some snapshots of what the website looks like and what it offers. Now, let me just bring that back. I seem to have, where have I put it? Oops. Okay. As you can see, that's the front page of the website, dedicated to helping those who protect us. Within that, it's also got how to get help now, support for you, support for others, diagnosis and treatment, personal stories, tools and resources. That's the bottom half of it, mental health and resilience and wellbeing in the police. Information for current employees, former employees, family members and friends. Oops, let's go back there. Sorry about that. I'm just trying to move that thing out of the way. Thank you. Okay, and as you see, it's got information about depression, anxiety, and how to help someone at risk. Some of the tools, the specific tools, support for you. It has sections on alcohol, exercise, nutrition, sleep, stress, mindfulness, grief and loss. A lot of these sections also have added audio files and other forms of techniques that can help you to actually monitor these things as well. Support for others, how to help someone at risk. And this is really important, this section for me, because, and again, it's something that peers can use. It's for anybody who could be a colleague that's concerned about a workmate or somebody or a family member who's worried about a police member, to give them some advice. They can look it up online and say, well, this is what I need to do, or these are my options. How to help someone at risk. The relationship section I really like. Relationship problems are the #1 reason that employees contact the Victoria Police Psychology Unit. This section offers tips for building and maintaining healthy relationships. We can look after people, but if we don't look after their families as well, that will impact on them just as badly as if we don't look after them within the job. This is their foundational support systems, part of their social support networks that are so important. Looking after yourself as a carer, recognising the impacts of the job on families, and supporting someone grieving. Then there's a section on personal stories. Personal stories covered relate to issues such as being a parent of a police officer, impact and management of critical incidents, the experience of being the spouse or a partner of a police officer, retirement, surviving PTSD, balancing your personal needs and the needs of family and work life, single parents, those kinds of stories. Very, very good.
Joe, I'm going to interrupt you briefly. Can you? We need to be mindful of the time, so we have.
Yes, thank you very much.
Presenter, so.
Thank you, John. Police Fit is the Victoria. This is another quick one. Police Fit is a Victoria Police product designed to assist applicants to prepare for the Victoria Police fitness tests as part of the recruitment process. It's also available for free on Android and iOS. That can be used by anybody, of course, as an exercise regime to improve their fitness. And finally, just to leave you with, I've got some. I thought I'd present some free online training courses for building resilience. Just a basic list there. I imagine a lot of our speakers might be aware of these ones, but they're actually quite a useful little resource. I've actually done the Science of Happiness, which is the last one there, and I found that to be terrific. It was quite a lot of work. It's 12 weeks, I think, and 4 or 5 hours a week, I think, homework as part of that. But others are much less resource hungry in terms of your time. So these are things that can be used for, these kind of free online training courses have been can be used to help your peers build personal resilience, and I've posted this list up on the Symposium site for you to access, thanks to Jeff, who put that on there. Thank you very much.
Good, cool. Thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate it. So stop sharing your screen, and then
oh yes, thank you.
Cool. So our next presenter, and I hate to rush, but I feel like we got to be rushed because of the time. So Dr. Denise Jablonski-Kay, she's a board certified psychologist and the assistant commanding officer of behavioral science services for the LAPD, the Los Angeles Police Department. I'm going to keep it brief. Go ahead, Dr. Jablonski-Kay.
Well, let me see if I can get my presentation up there. I might need to do something here for a second, and I'm sorry, I thought I had it queued up. There it is. So can you see my screen?
I do not. There you go.
How about now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, hi everyone. I am thrilled to be here, and I am so impressed with what Jeff Thompson was able to pull together. It's pretty amazing. Anyway, it's my privilege to talk about the Los Angeles Police Department Peer Support Program, which was actually the first of its kind in law enforcement, as it was established almost 40 years ago. So that's pretty amazing that we have a history that is that long. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview about the program, and then I'm also going to talk about how we've been able to kind of harness the power of peer support and use it with our resiliency building, wellness, and suicide prevention. So it was 1981, back when people had some healthy mustaches. And there was a sergeant who was sitting and talking to an officer who had been involved in a shooting, and was experiencing some distress after the shooting, as you would expect. But he was also reporting that things at home were not so good, and that maybe he was drinking a little more than he normally would have. And so this supervisor remembered that he had spoken to somebody a few years ago who kind of had a similar reaction after this an OIS, and he had this idea, well, what if this one officer could speak to the other officer, and maybe they could talk to each other, and it would be really helpful. And so that was 1981, 39 years ago. That was the inception of our peer support program. And it was very informal at that point in time, and it followed very much like an AA 12-step program, and that people had informal, casual, helpful conversations. They were confidential, they were anonymous. There really wasn't any training. It was just connecting people who had had similar experiences. So fast forward a little bit to 1988, and by then the program was a little bit more formal. We had 200 people in our peer support program who were now providing services to about 7,900 sworn. So the idea behind the peer support was that these informal, casual, helpful, confidential interactions would help people first with a significant event like an OIS, but later on we learned that we needed to respond to officers over the entire course of their career, and that they might experience a catastrophic event, or they might have cumulative trauma, or they might have vicarious trauma. But these kinds of casual conversations with people who have been there, experienced things, were very helpful. So we also found out that resiliency skills were really connected to the social connectedness of people. When people could talk to somebody and share their experience and know that somebody, as they were nodding, was understanding what they were saying, could appreciate what they were saying, lived in the same world that they were experiencing, those were going to be very, very hopeful things. There are many ways to measure the effectiveness of programs, and I think we've seen some of that in the research today. But I'd like to say that the one metric that really matters for me is suicide prevention. And in 2007, when I became the coordinator of our peer support program, which was then called peer counseling, one of the first things we did was we changed the name. We changed it from peer counseling to peer support because we wanted it to be very clear that people were not getting counseling. They weren't talking to mental health professionals. They were talking to peers. And these peers had a particular type of training to give them support. And I'll talk a little bit about that, what support, how we define support. But when I looked at the statistics from 1990 to 2007, that was 16 years, we had 36 suicide deaths by LAPD officers at that point in time. And one year we had 4 suicide deaths. 1 year we had, 5 years we had 3, but it basically averaged down to 2 suicide deaths a year. And the sad part of that was that the department kind of just expected that. If it went up to 4, they were alarmed, but 2 was kind of what we averaged. And in my mind, the only number that's acceptable is 0. So we put a heavy focus on our peer support folks to address that problem specifically, because there are a lot of problems that police officers can get into. You know, they can get a DUI, there can be DV, they can have financial problems, substance abuse problems. They can come back from those problems. They can survive those problems. But a suicide, nobody comes back from that. And it leaves an incredible wake of pain and suffering for the families and for the department. So there was no suicide number that was going to be acceptable, at least for me. And that's the metric of whether a program is effective or not. So peer support defined. what we made sure was that first of all, our people were trained. We changed from a 32-hour program to a 40-hour program. We made sure that the program got certified by post. And we made sure people knew that peer support wasn't counseling, but it was support that was offered by people who walk in your shoes, who know what you're talking about. The first thing that's really important is that our folks are good listeners, that there's no judgment, there's no problem solving, there's not telling people what to do, but basically just listening. So we put a heavy emphasis on active listening skills. And we heard a little bit about that this morning, how important being able to connect with people and encourage them to tell me more about that problem just makes them feel better. I know I've had people come into my office as a psychologist and we spend 50 minutes talking about their problem when we haven't solved their problem, but as they're leaving, they say, "Hey doc, I feel so much better." Well, they feel so much better because they offloaded some stuff. And so peer support also instills hope. We encourage people to walk with them on the journey. Maybe that meant going to an AA meeting. Maybe that meant going to chemotherapy treatment appointments with them. Dispel the myths about what it means to get help, that talking about your problems are okay. It's okay to have problems, and making sure that our folks definitely knew the resources. So again, going back to suicide prevention, we trained up our folks really seriously in terms of suicide prevention. Not only did we give them information about the warning signs and the risk factors and what to say and what to do about it, but we also made them feel very comfortable that they could have those conversations with their friends and their coworkers and not feel like they were going to rupture relationships and not feel like they were going to ruin careers. We helped sort of turn how they looked at this, that they were actually saving lives, helping people. We sort of changed the culture of how you talk about suicide. And we actually changed the culture in talking about suicide, because that is so important to have that conversation. And one of the things we did 3 years ago was we had a walk to during September, during Suicide Prevention Month. And what that did was the first year we got 750 people together. The second year we got 1,500 people together. But what that did was it extended the conversation about suicide way after September into October, November, December. This year we weren't able to have an in-face walk, so we had a virtual walk, and NYPD joined us, and agencies across the country. We had 67 agencies join us in this virtual walk. So that was a way to stay connected, but also to get the message out there. About 5 years ago, we took this idea of cadres a little bit farther. Right now we have 325 peer support members, and we divided them into cadres. One was an OIS cadre, which kind of goes back to our original roots, people who peer support members who've experienced a shooting, talking to other people. And now more than ever, with all the body-worn video, with all the social media, with all the oversight, people really need to be able to talk to somebody who has been through this experience, so that they believe that they can walk through this experience and get to the other side. We have a vet-to-vet cadre for people who have been deployed, redeployed, the integration issues, the family issues. Who better to talk than somebody who is a peer support member who's also been through that? We have a caregiver support group. Many of our employees are taking care of special needs children, or they're taking care of their elderly parents. They're sort of that sandwich generation in the middle. We have a caregiver support group, cancer support group, substance abuse support group, retirees, and I forgot to put up there, we have a fitness and a wellness and fitness support group. So if you need specific support, it's there. One of the things that Jeff had asked me to talk about is how we take care of the people who take care of others. And we do put a lot of emphasis on self-care and self-awareness. We have annual training, and you'll see the top self-care tips for taking care of yourself. And this was put together by Francois Mathieu, who is from Canada, and she has a site called Compassion Fatigue. And we were so fortunate. I had her come down and talk to our peer support members about compassion fatigue and taking care of yourselves and being aware of when you need to step aside and you need some help. So I know we're running out of time. I just want to give you 3 takeaways. Really important for peer support that you make sure that you have the clinical support to be able to provide good structure to the program. Make sure that people understand what the definition of the support services they're giving are, and have very clear boundaries of how not to overstep when you're providing peer support services. Know the limits of confidentiality. Here in California, we recently had a state assembly bill, AB 1117, that made it very crystal clear what the limits of confidentiality for law enforcement are, when you have to report and when you don't have to report. And there's all kinds of legal protection for the agency, for the individual who provides the peer support service, and for the person who's receiving the peer support service. And I think that our numbers for suicide right now have really turned the tide. Our last suicide was 13 months ago, and before that we went 22 months without a suicide. And so, like I said in the beginning, that's the metric that matters for me. That's what I'm basing our peer support program on. And I would say that I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that it was our peer support program that was instrumental in turning the tide, changing the culture, providing the intervention, the support that people need during critical times, so that we are not losing people to suicide. I want to thank you all for allowing me to participate in this. It's been amazing. Here's my contact. I'd be happy to talk to anybody about our program at any time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jablonski-Kay. I really appreciate everything you had to say. I made special note about your cadre model. I love that model of peer support. So that's something I'll probably borrow or steal, however you want to look at it. But
it's all yours.
That's amazing. Great panel discussion today. You guys all had valuable stuff, and each one of you could have easily filled an hour with all that you were talking about. So I appreciate that everybody shared what they did. You know, the stuff from NYPD was amazing. The stuff from our friends in Canada was amazing, as far as all of the resources that we've got available. Joe, the stuff you have with the technology piece was really powerful, and there's a lot of comments on the chat about that. Great discussion with everybody. I know Jeff's going to share a lot of this information on the website, because there's so much follow-up stuff that needs to be shared, and those resources really need to be shared and spread amongst all of us. So I'll close with that. Thanks everybody for their time. I know we ran over. Thank you so much though. I appreciate everybody and everything you guys said.